Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us, and welcome to A Turn of Events, where we put a positive spin on the future of your business. I'm Annette Nave, the founder and creative director of Nave Productions. We are a strategic event production company based in New York City and Boca Raton, but we do events all over the world. We specialize in corporate, social, nonprofit, and wedding. If you are a wedding and event planner and you're looking for community, you must join us over at the Event Planner Society Facebook group. We have driven, creative, and passionate event planners only, wedding and event planners in that group. We bring planners together around the world to network, gain referrals, improve their mindset, and just build their businesses. And I go in there live a lot to teach a lot of the stuff that I've learned and tricks and trades of the industry and what to do and what not to do, most importantly. So join us over at the Event Planner Society Facebook group. Would love to have you. So my next guest is fantastic. She's really awesome. Her name is Cameron Forbes. She is the visionary founder of Forbes Functions, where exceptional event planning meets the pulse of New York City. At Forbes Functions, Cameron leverages her extensive network of vendors as well as her female team to curate bespoke experiences for her clients. Her flair for hosting, coupled with an innovative approach, has positioned her as a leading tastemaker in the event planning scene. Under her guidance, Forbes Functions is not just planning events, it's crafting unforgettable memories and trend-setting celebrations that resonate with elegance and exclusivity. And I love it. Welcome, Cameron. How are you?
I'm great. Thank you so much for having me, Annette.
Yes, thank you. We've tried to do this for a while now. We had some technical difficulties out there, but we figured them out. And so here we are. So I'm
Well, I was
excited.
going to say, we're event planners. We're not IT experts.
I know. And that's why I have a team to help me because I am not, I'm not the greatest at the technology here. So super excited to talk to you because we're going to talk about the back end of business, the not so fun stuff no one talks about. So we are definitely going to probably be able to share all kinds of stuff. But first of all, why don't you tell everybody, how did you get started? How did we get to this point?
Yeah, so I am a born and raised New Yorker. I grew up in the city. I went to Duke University in North Carolina for undergrad. And during my time in college, I worked a lot in public relations in New York City. So had amazing exposure to the event industry and production through that, working for amazing clients like Vogue Co., the Polo Classic, some of the other LMBH brands. And through those experiences in PR, just really realized events was the place I wanted to be. And I actually graduated college during the pandemic. I'm pretty young. I'm only 25.
Just a
So
baby.
I know. So I ended up actually working in banking for 2 years and then actually started my own business kind of as a little bit of a side hustle. Was doing events on the weekend and working my banking job during the week. And then we gained a ton of momentum and I was able to quit my job. And now I've had my business for over 2.5 years and have been full-time running it for about a year and a half.
That's exciting. That's exciting. We have lots of people out there listening that are just starting their businesses. I've been doing events longer than you've been alive. So so that's kind of crazy. But so lots of people starting their businesses, their wedding and event business. And what's the one thing, because you're kind of like still new, still in the beginning stages, which, I feel like sometimes I've been 15 years now with my business. And then prior to that, I was doing events for about 20 years or so. And so, which is so crazy to believe, but it's always a challenge, no matter how many years you've been in, no matter what levels you're at, you get different problems as you grow, you have a team, and then that becomes a whole thing in itself, and managing the team and managing the events and running the business. It's a lot,
It's so true.
I know. So what are some of the biggest challenges you face as an event planner behind the scenes that clients may not be aware of?
Yeah, I mean, I think just the biggest challenge as an event planner in general is managing the unexpected and the unforeseen.
Right.
So, no matter how meticulously you plan and how amazing your run of show is, there will always be a last minute change or an unforeseen issue, whether it's, a vendor is running late, we have a sudden change in weather. We have, a couple additions to the guest list at the last minute. So I think, as an event planner, it's really about balancing all these elements while maintaining a seamless experience for the client. And that's just kind of a constant juggle. And I really think, one of the things I've learned is it's all about, staying calm, cool, and collected under pressure. And even if, everything is going wrong, it's pouring, the florist is running late, the caterer doesn't have enough forks, you want to be presenting, a really polished and put together experience for the client. So it's really about, managing the back of house and then presenting, really nicely up front in front of house.
Right. And the key is you never want the client to really know what's going on as well.
No, you never want to see them sweat.
Right. Right, exactly. So we don't let our client there when we're setting up. They don't need to see all the nitty-gritty. They don't need to see our moods as we're changing into, trying to get things to work. Or it's the stories I could tell. It's endless,
Yeah,
just recently. Yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say recently, we had an amazing event. It was out in the Hamptons. We had around 200 guests. It was a tented event, 80s themed. We had an amazing cover band, and it was great. The weather was perfect for the first 4 hours. And
Okay.
the last hour, it was downpour. There was lightning. We had to, be very careful with the production in the tent because of the lightning strikes and the warnings with the weather.
Yeah.
And as we were doing breakdown, event went amazing. Everything was great. All the guests went home. As we're doing breakdown, around midnight, 1 a.m, we had 2 vans get stuck in the mud. And so, we were there for an extra 3 or 4 hours, but it's like, I will never say to the client, we had the van stuck in the mud or we had this issue. That should
Yeah.
all be behind the scenes. And, the next day we sent a nice thank you email, and it's like, none of that ever happened.
Yeah. That's the thing that's tricky about tents. I just saw on Instagram this beautiful, I was following it as they were setting I know the people that were setting it all up and stuff, and they were in Como, Lake Como in Italy. Beautiful, beautiful set. Just so beautiful setup over this tent with like glass clear coverings. They were probably plexiglass, right? They're not really glass. And a hailstorm came in as the reception was starting, and it destroyed everything. Like the guests had to like run into the villa, and it was just heartbreaking to see it. And they posted a video about it. And of course, they got amazing pictures from it because everything looked like craziness. And then they had the bride and groom posing in front of all of this craziness, which really turned out to be some really cool pictures. But you could see she was crying. She didn't look, she was having moments, but they let everybody come in. But we've had things where, the stage, when we went to look at the venue, they showed us a stage that was the perfect stage, but they didn't tell us that it was a rented stage. The guy was showing the thing, didn't realize that it wasn't the venue stage. And so when we went to set up for ours, we told them we wanted the stage. It usually comes with the venue. And they brought this tiny, this was a tall stage, perfect for like 4-5 speakers. You want the stage to be high enough so everybody's up.
Yep.
There's no point in getting a stage that's like this high. That's not going to do anything. Nobody in the back is going to be able to see. And I literally, thank God, I had a great AV company that called in their stage, called in a stage, got it there within a couple hours, cost us another $2,500, but we had to have it. And then the venue actually took charges off of our bill from the venue to pay for that stage, because that was a mistake. Like,
Yeah.
selling the
And I
space
think
years of stage, it was really bad.
And I think one of the things you're getting at there is one of the most important things as an event planner, which are literally just your relationships with your vendors.
Oh,
And
yeah.
hearing you just say that, it's so true. Again, similarly, we had another event this summer where, we had rented linens from one company. We were missing 2 linens out of like 14 of them. And again, I am so grateful that I have amazing rental partners in the Hamptons. And I was able to call up, one of our vendors and say, I'm so sorry. I know this is crazy last minute. Do you have these 2, airport cover cocktail tables in pink? They had them. I was able to drive over, grab them. But again, it's if you don't have those strong relationships with your vendors that, take years to build, and also is just, through mutual respect and honesty, you won't be able to kind of have those quick solves and solutions to challenges that arise.
It's so true. And vendors are everything. I mean, without them, we cannot do our job. They make us look amazing. And it's really important to have relationships with them. I don't have just like one AV team I work with or one, but I have a couple that I work with a lot. It really also depends on the budgets of my clients. And sometimes
So true.
higher end, and I have all different levels, and that's the thing. I have a whole bunch of photographers I work with, but each one of them are different. Each one has a specialty in maybe weddings or corporate or trade shows or whatever that looks like. So not every photographer, and that's the things you want to make sure is that your vendors are experienced in that event that you're doing, right? But the relationships, I mean, listen, I think my relationships with my vendors are way more important than relationships with my clients, because
No, I think it's so true.
I can't do anything without them, and they make me look so amazing. And I'm just there kind of pointing fingers and making sure everybody does what they're supposed to do. But, obviously we help bring that together. So how do you manage the logistics of multiple vendors, contracts, and timelines to ensure a smooth event?
Yeah, I mean, I would say it really is all about organization. Organization is so critical in event planning, and my team we really rely on, our detailed checklists, our timelines, our run of show, our inventory list, our contact lists, maintaining really clear communication with all of our vendors via text, email, making sure, we have contacts for every single person that will be on site. Having regular follow-ups leading up to the event day, confirmation calls, in that final week or final few days. We recently started using in the spring a new project management software. So, having those digital tools that keep everything on track is also incredibly helpful. So I think it's really about, staying proactive with those digital tools and organization, and then having, the contingency plans in place of having, backup cell numbers, making sure you have, a line to every vendor that's going to be there, making sure that everyone has the run of show in hand a week out from the event. So if there are any issues, we can work through them. It's really all about, organization and keeping those logistics super, super clean and organized.
So good. Systems is everything. Having your
It's
system.
so true.
I mean, if we didn't have systems, it's a mess. There's too many things to remember. And, as an event business, we're running, 10, 20 events a year or more. It depends on, what you want in your year. We are doing a lot less now because, one, I've been doing this a long time, trying to think about retiring, which is not really going to happen, but I'm just doing less. I'm charging more and doing less. And that's what you kind of want to do. I'm getting on a more higher end level here. So, which I'm loving. It's just takes some time to get used to it because I'm so used to doing so many events, so much team, so much. It's a lot. And I don't want to do that. I don't want to work that hard anymore. So, but systems is everything. And we talked about communication. So with our vendors as well, I mean, we've even kicked up a notch with our vendors to make sure that they have their own schedules. Like if I give them a run of show, it's everything, right? The production schedule.
Yeah.
Run of show. It's everything that's in there. From the minute we wake up, it's the makeup, the this, the that. They don't need to know all that. So we give them a separate one so that they have a separate schedule of what needs to get done for just them. But then they also have the whole run of show. And having calls with them prior to the event or whatever it is very, very important. Going through what their role is and not just send it to them and have them show up. I find I love my vendors so much, but they are creatives and they're not good with the details, right? They're not good with, they're running their businesses as well. I've always talked about, I actually have helped so many of my vendors okay, your contract should look like this and you should do this and your invoices, and you have to listen, if they want to work with us, they have to be at the same level that we are. And you can't be sloppy. The clients aren't going to like that. So I think just having those things in place are really, really, really important, which you made some really great points.
It's so true. And I mean, I think hearing you say that, to me, it's a red flag if I find a new vendor online or a vendor comes to me and, they don't send out invoices, like they only use Zelle or Venmo, or, they take requests via DM. It's just a different kind of level of professionalism and organization. And
Yeah.
to me, it's just a little bit of a red flag when another business owner maybe doesn't have those systems in place that I know will keep us organized and ensure that we can limit the number of unforeseen challenges on event day.
That's right. And because I do not just weddings, because with weddings, we don't use a lot of AV, right? There's the sound and hookup for the band, and there's not a ton of AV. But when you're doing a corporate event, a 5-day event, a week, whatever it looks like, with lots of speakers and breakout rooms and all of that, there is a lot that has to go with the AV. It's a very, very big job. So that I'm a little more particular about who I work with, because they have to be able to call the show. They need to be able to know that system that's there. And I have a dedicated person from the company that I work with. So if I'm working with a smaller AV company, it will tend to be like the person who owns a company is doing everything, and then I can't get a hold of them. They're on site, they're this and that. It's kind of difficult, but I've learned to you work with who works with you, right? With whatever.
Yes, it's so true.
It is true. So, okay. So how do you handle, this is a good one, because I got lots of stuff on here, but how do you handle difficult clients or situations while maintaining professionalism and delivering a successful event?
So I think it's really all about, patience. I think
Ugh,
empathy. I also think at the end of the day, though, it's also about setting healthy boundaries with your clients.
yes.
So, I always want to listen carefully to any concerns my clients want to have. I want to address those concerns as soon as possible. I always want to be able to provide a solution when they come to me with a problem. But it's really important to stay calm, stay professional, even in these stressful situations where maybe, you have a difficult client or a difficult situation. So I think it really is about, building a rapport with your client, establishing trust, and really kind of like leading by example and managing expectations, ensuring the planning process runs smoothly.
Right.
So for me, that means, letting my clients know I really don't communicate via text. I prefer all communication via email so nothing gets lost in the mix. Or, I'm reachable from 9 a.m. until 7 p.m. 5 days a week. But if you call me at 11 p.m. on a Friday, I'm not going to be answering you. You'll get an email from me on Monday morning promptly. So I think, drawing those healthy boundaries and making it clear to clients what your communication style is like, how you are going to be communicating with them, what the schedule is going to look like as far as that communication and management, that normally kind of sets the tone for the relationships and helps you kind of avoid those difficult situations.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. You've said exactly what I would have said. The one thing is that when you're first starting out, it's scary to set, like, listen, they're hiring you because you're a professional. They're not. If they knew what to do, or they would do it themselves. So I know when I first started myself with my business, I didn't realize that I needed to kind of teach them how we work, right? Setting the boundaries right from the beginning. And of course, over time, things happen all the time. I'm like, okay, I got to remember that next time because this happened,
Yes.
right? Every client's different. The biggest part of this entire job is handling the clients. The events are a piece of cake, and I don't care how big they are. I don't care how many people are there, all the moving parts. It's the clients and all of their anxiety. And even if it's a corporate company, they need to do good, do well for the company. So it's a tricky situation, but setting that, not to be afraid to say, this is how we work. Again, I only work through this times. I don't do text. Sometimes I let them text me, but then I always say, if it's instructions you're giving me or things you need me to do, you need to send them over to an email, right? But I try to stay off a text message because you gets lost. I get too many text messages.
Exactly.
And then I won't remember. So they're very good about it. But yes, you really have to teach them how to work with you. It's your business. And now, sometimes if you're working with corporate, there are some corporate things you have to follow, right? Protocol.
Yes.
And that
I was going to say, I mean, right now I'm doing an event for New York Tech Week. So we're working with a big fintech company. And obviously with that, there's a lot of regulations and, the payment process, the contracting process, invoicing is a lot, more difficult than it is with a private client.
right.
But again, it's all about, leading the clients through that process, making sure we have the systems in place to accommodate them. just, making them, ensuring their satisfaction, managing those expectations.
Yeah, just and be confident in what you're telling them about your business.
Yes.
You run.
And I think it's so true what you said as well early on, especially I think about myself like 2.5, 3 years ago. You want to say yes to everything. You never
Yep.
want to leave a client unhappy. But I think there's also a risk that if you from day one say yes to everything and really don't start building a niche for yourself and don't set those boundaries, number one, you're going to be kind of, I think you're burning the candle at both ends. You're going to end up burnt out. But number two, you're kind of establishing a reputation for yourself in the industry as the planner that's willing to do anything, that will take a
Right.
call at 1 in the morning, that will
No,
work with any
never
budget.
do that.
And that's not the best way to position yourself.
Yeah, I mean, so what this is a great example of that. And it taught me from that moment on that saying no was got me a job. Okay. So we had it was a big one too. It was for the municipal credit union. It was their 100th year anniversary. And there's there's 5 boroughs in New York for those of you who are not from here, which, I'm there too. But, and each borough has offices, right? Locations for the municipal credit union. So it was all of the boroughs. There were 1,500 people coming to this. They spent over $1 million. The decor was fantastic. It was crazy decor. So it was really, really fun because as planners, we love to be able to build things and all of that stuff. And they had talked to 5 planners before they came to me. And along the way, the people who were hiring were concerned because they said we only have 3 hours to set up. Now we're talking about a huge amount of decor. There's no way on any universe that you could set all this up in 3 hours. And the first thing I said to them was, now I would have been nervous. This was some time in. I was like, I will not be able to set this up in 3 hours. So I told them what to do. I told them to go back, renegotiate this piece, get more time. And I didn't even hire me yet. I already gave them advice, which sometimes you need to do that, right? And they loved that I said, I can't do this within 3 hours. I mean, I can barely do it in 5. And so because of that, because I said no, and then I helped them also get more time on the front end of their event, they hired us. And it was a great, great, great experience. And at the time, it was a lot of money and it was really fantastic. So that's the thing I learned. Saying no it's your reputation. So if you didn't have that 3 hours to set up, then you would have looked, if it took you way more.
Yeah, exactly.
People were coming in and you're building things and oh my gosh, it would have been a disaster and it would have made you.
It's so true.
So you don't want to do that. Yeah. Yeah. It's scary though sometimes, especially I know it's scary, but as you get older and as you've done this so many times, it's a lot easier to say no or to tell them how things should be and all of that. So, okay. So what strategies do you use to stay organized and keep track of all the details involved in planning a wedding or event? And I know that you mentioned you just started using a software system. So what are you using and how are you doing that?
Yeah, so as far as project management software, I know, there's so many different options these days.
Yeah.
I personally, coming from a banking and tech background, I love Asana. I think it's super easy to use. It's free up until you have 10 team members. For me and my team, it's just super great to be able to track projects. The calendar is super organized. We can color code things. So as far as digital tools, I love Asana. I love QuickBooks. We use QuickBooks for our invoicing. I use HoneyBook for contracting. Those digital tools are amazing. And then, some of the more old school methods spreadsheets, a good old Excel spreadsheet. Who doesn't love that?
There's nothing better, right? A Google Doc. I'm into the.
Exactly.
Yeah,
and,
we do
even
having Google Doc. I've tried many systems, right? Along the years, we've tried a lot of the software systems and I just didn't love, Asana we have, but we use it differently. There's different reasons why we use it, but I'm Google Drive and Dropbox is basically, it's super simple. And, that's a system we've had for so long and everybody seems to work on it. I do like to be able to see what people are doing. So that's a system that I probably need see like, but we meet regularly, and every meeting, every event has meeting notes that we follow every 2 weeks that we meet with them, and we build up to that. But and then we kind of bite size it down to every 2 weeks, and then people go off and do whatever they need to do. And so we do that. But yeah, so go ahead. What were you going to say?
Yeah, I was gonna say, I think, having those regular team meetings are super helpful. That's kind of more of an old school method. And I think, I feel like most event planners are pretty visual and tactile. I always like to have a physical binder. I like to have a printed timeline.
You
I like to
do.
have a printed floor
That's
plan.
so
Yeah.
cool. Yeah.
I just think it's so nice to have it. It's one thing to have my iPad and I'm carrying it with one hand and I'm running around the venue. And it's just so easy to have, here's 6 binders, hand them out to everyone. Everybody has it with your name on it. It's easy. If the
Yeah.
Wi-Fi goes out, we still have everything.
Right.
So I
Right.
think, a mix of those kind of old school methods and digital tools is kind of the best way to go. And I think as an event planner in 2024, it's so exciting just because there's so many new technologies. We've started to use AI note-taking software that sits in our client meetings.
Isn't that
So even though
amazing?
we still take notes, we get those, summaries of every meeting, and it's great to have for our records. So I think there's a lot of exciting event technology that really is going to transform the space in the next 5, 10 years.
Yeah, I completely agree. And we use AI a lot. We use it a lot. If I'm stuck on something I want to say, or a way I want to say something, I'll put a little phrase in and boom. And I'm like, wow, this is amazing. Like, it's so great.
It's so great.
Writing blogs. And yes, when we do meetings, we do the AI recording. It's just amazing. It breaks it down. I don't have to take any notes. I mean, I should probably start doing that
It's,
with all my client meetings now that I'm
yeah,
thinking
it's
about
great.
it. That's a really good idea. I think I'm going to try that. I think I'm
I
going to
highly recommend.
Yeah, I think I'm going to try it. I'm so used to taking notes on a meeting, like breaking it down into categories on the notes. But I think I might try that. That's a good idea. See, there you go. Okay, so in the age of social media and instant sharing, how do you manage client expectations regarding timelines and deliverables?
Yeah, I mean, I think I hit on this a little bit earlier talking about, setting those clear expectations from the outset. I think that is very essential. Always in our first initial meeting or once we've signed on, I like to explain, here are the realistic timelines for each deliverable and also emphasize the importance of, quality over speed. So, yes, there might be a photographer who can get you the images in 48 hours, but if we have a photographer who can get you them in, 3 or 4 days, that is someone we love and we think that their work is a way higher caliber, I'm going to recommend them. So I think it's really about, being honest with the client and upfront saying, here's when you should expect XYZ and having those marked from the outset. And then communicating clearly, if the photographer reaches out and says, you know what, I have a delay, there's a backlog, whatever, just communicating that to the client, being honest, transparent. I think those are kind of the best practices as far as, managing client expectations.
Yeah, I mean, we have ridiculous customer service. I mean, I literally have no emails in my inbox. So we work everything quite quickly, which does spoil them, which also makes it look like it's so easy what we do. But they find out if they decide at the end of the day to try it themselves for the next event, and then they always come back. But one of the things that that you said was, so with photography, we have found that I always ask for at least like maybe 20 pictures right after,
Exactly.
so that
Like a
the
sneak peek
client
or
has
preview is so great.
right, because they also like to send it out an email the next day and thank everyone for being, and here's a little sneak peek. And then usually we tell them they're not going to get the finals in for a week or something. So and then they deliver them faster. So it's always good to
Exactly.
you know, to make sure they get them quicker, and then they're happier. So that's great. So what advice would you give someone starting out in the event planning industry, particularly in managing the less glamorous aspects of the business? And there's so much of that,
Yeah.
right? It's not
Yeah. And I think
it's like, oh, it's so beautiful and glamorous. I'm like, oh Lord.
I think, as someone who worked on the PR side of things, I had kind of the other side of the aisle view in terms of seeing, working from more of a client perspective. And I think for me, when I first was working in events in that environment, I was like, this is so fun. It's so sexy. It's glitzy. It's glamorous. And then, when you really start out on your own and you're focusing on production, like first and foremost, it is a lot more than you expect in terms of hard work, long hours, manual labor, standing on your feet.
It
So
is.
I would say, you really need to expect that the behind the scenes work, first off, is the majority of the time. It's going to be intense. It can be stressful. But at the same time, we're in this industry for a reason. It's incredibly rewarding. It's so much fun.
It
And
is.
I absolutely love it. I'm sure you do too. So I really think, staying organized, being proactive, always having, plan A, B, C, D, and E. Those are the really keys, like kind of aspects in managing the less glamorous aspects. And then again, going back to relationships, having those super strong connections with your clients and your vendors, that's another big key to success in the less glamorous aspects for when there's are those moments like, oh shoot, we need an extra linen, or oh shoot, I need to get my AV guy to get me a stage last minute. So I think, it's really about relationships and recognizing, you're putting in the work, but it's for this incredibly rewarding career.
Exactly. And, the freedom of being able to work from anywhere. You don't have to go to a job that you don't like half the people you work with. You're not getting listen, I could go on for hours about that because I
It's
did
so
it
true.
for years. I worked in corporate for many, many years. But it's scary because you're the one bringing in the money and have to pay the bills, and you have the team, and then you have like it adds up, but it's worth every bit of it because now half the year I get to live in Florida half the year, and half the year I'm in New York. And so I wouldn't be able to do that if I had to have a job in New York and couldn't leave. So I just think it's pretty special. The one thing I want to say about, just starting out, and that is the really most important thing is not to give up and to be consistent. Because I know the biggest questions I always get, because I coach wedding and event planners and, how to start their own business. And the biggest questions I get is, how do I get clients? How do I price my services? What do I do when I get the client? Those are always the biggest questions. And your marketing is everything. I mean, you really do need to network and market, and it have to be consistent though. It doesn't happen in 5 months, a year. It even might not even happen in 2 years, but you have to be consistent. I mean, even now I still do all the things that I teach. I still do them
It's
all.
so true. And I mean, speaking of consistency and, marketing as well, I think I feel so fortunate as, a member of Gen Z to have such a solid understanding, having grown up with Instagram, Snapchat, TikTok. And,
Yeah.
you saying these things don't happen overnight. We've had a TikTok for almost 3 years. We had 15,000 followers for the last 3 years. We had one viral video 2 weeks ago. We now have almost 50,000 followers. So you really never know. And it's so
Never know.
random when it
Yeah.
hits and when you get the momentum.
Yep.
But I will say, getting on those platforms, that really is where people are looking for your portfolio nowadays. They're not going on your website. They're not going on the Knot as much as they used to. They are going to social media, and you want to be presenting, a really beautiful brand and vision to them online.
So true. But I have to say that my website does bring a lot of work to me because I did the SEO, and that's super.
SEO is so important, true.
If you have a website and you don't have SEO, don't even bother. Like, because it's not going to do anything. People are not going to find you, but they Google, nonprofit planner, New York City, and we pop right up. And that's because I've spent a little bit of money. I have not spent a lot of money. And I always teach you don't have to spend a lot of money
Well,
to.
I was going to say, we had someone do our SEO. I found them on Fiverr. It's an app. I paid him probably $500. Took a couple of days, and it's here we go now. We get so many more hits on our websites, and we're getting, leads turning into sales. So even just the small investments like that early on. Another thing I always say to people is do things right the first time.
Yeah.
Don't, start your event company and have, NYC event planning at Gmail. Spend the $10 to get the
Yeah.
professional Google suite. Do things right the first time, because you're going to be kicking yourself when you do get that momentum and that growth. And then you have to go back and you have to put all these systems in place, and you already have a team. You really want to start with a solid foundation as you build.
It's so true. You're so smart for just a little bit of time
Thank
in
you.
this industry. I'm super proud of you. But that is very true. And the best way to do that is hire a coach, hire somebody that can help you, that's been down the road and knows how you should start the business right from the get-go. Because, I started my business when I was 47 years old. I was, you're young. I wish I had started my business when I was 20. But at the time, entrepreneurship was not even a word that we ever even talked about. You got a job and you got a job. That was it. It was like,
Yeah.
no one had if you had your own businesses because your family had it and you were kind of like brought into it from the family, it wasn't a thing that happened. And my parents were certainly not in that world at all. They were, worked a 9 to 5 and barely made any money. So it was like one of those things, and barely even, finished high school. So, but it's definitely, and I forgot where my point was going with that, but,
No, I think what you're saying though is, these days, number one, there are
yeah,
so many more resources out there. What
yeah,
you were saying about coaching and mentoring is so true,
yeah,
but even just thinking about, this podcast,
yeah,
anyone can access this, anyone can access the Facebook group. There's
yeah,
so many resources online where,
yeah,
I've had some, my PR experience, but it's not like I'm only 25. I don't have years and years of
yeah,
experience,
no, for
but
sure.
there are so many things you can learn from online
Yeah,
these days.
yeah,
And I think that's really what's shaking up the industry and is allowing people to start their own businesses, because we have all these incredible resources and thought leaders online who are willing to share so many tips of the trade.
yeah. When I started my business, nobody would help me. There was nobody
It's
out
so
there
true.
helping. And I said, once my business is up and I'm going to start helping other planners. And someone had reached out to me, I don't know, it was probably 8, 9 years ago now, and said, I'm starting my business. I need some help. Can you help me? And that's kind of how I really just accidentally, I knew someday I would, but then I started doing one-on-ones. And now I have a digital course that, I do it now so that I can help more than just one person at a time. Right. But I don't mind, I have colleagues always say, or friends say, why are you helping people? Aren't you afraid that they're going to, like, nobody could there's so much work. I could not
Well,
possibly do it.
that's another thing is I
And so
really
why
think
not help others? I want the industry to be a strong industry. I don't want people out there who are undercharging, and that hurts us, right? So I wish that the industry was charging the same thing so that we could all be
I
fair.
so agree with you. And I think, one of the most important things that I think is becoming kind of a trend recently with event planning is just transparency. Because I think about, my friends planning their weddings, my cousins, and there is such a lack of transparency. I will have friends come to me and say, I want to get married in Southampton. I have a $50,000 budget. Does that sound reasonable? And it's like, I don't want to be the Debbie Downer who says,
It
hello,
does if you're going
girlfriend.
to have 20 people there, maybe, right?
Exactly. And so
Right?
I really think that
People, yeah,
we
right,
need more transparency in the industry. And I
right.
think that, social media is really driving that, and it's allowing people to actually kind of now have the resources to learn more about the industry, understand the rates. I think what you're saying too is everyone in the industry should have an abundance mindset. We are not, hyenas fighting over a single gazelle. There are
Right.
so many clients, there's so many planners. Everyone has their own niche. You look
Mhm.
at one of your events, one of my events, no two events should look the same. And
Right.
in my mind, it's like, we should be lifting everybody up, especially as female founders.
Yes, 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 especially. Very good point. Very good point. Okay, so how do you balance creativity and practicality when working within a client's budget and vision? And we were just mentioning that. So how do you balance that?
Yeah, I
It's
think, it starts with having a very clear understanding of the client's vision. And then I think, we always like to go through, and I think if you talk about categories, sitting down with them and saying, what really are the priorities here? So, if you have a $100,000 budget, is the band super important to you? Are the florals super important to you? Figuring out, what the couple's priorities or what the host priorities really are, and then
yep,
offering creative solutions that fit within their budget, I think is really the best approach. And, sometimes that means being resourceful, getting a little bit outside the box with vendors to achieve that desired look without overspending.
hmm,
But I really think it is about, priorities, setting those early on and making sure you have an understanding of, what the client really wants. And sometimes you know more about that than they do.
yes. And that's the other thing is it's really like when you start out, you're not going to know how much things cost. I mean, even myself, COVID has hit, the pricing is so different. It is extremely expensive right now. And I go into, I've got a client who's got a couple $100,000 and for their wedding and, I have to say to them, I need to do the pricing. Normally I could have like banged out, well, you're going to do this, this, this. I have an idea like of what the vendors are going to cost, but venues are ridiculous right now. And so I have said to them, I can't tell you that right now. I have to do the research because the pricing's so different. I mean,
It's so true. And I mean, it changes almost, I feel like at this point, it's
crazy.
like every year it's a 10% increase or so.
COVID
And
killed it. COVID
yeah,
just,
and it's so funny that you say that because I had a client the other day who asked me about a venue that we've worked with before. And I have their 2023 deck, but I was like, honestly, don't want to send you
yeah,
pricing until I have their new deck because it could be a $5,000, $10,000, $15,000 difference.
yeah. And you also, some hotels or venues are not giving linens now. You have to get those, and those are extra. And so you have to ask every little question. And so, I do a lot of site selection and contract negotiations. That's a big piece of my business as well, where we just find the venues for clients. And then we get a commission on the sleeping room block. And a lot of our corporate clients will hire us and then they have their teams do the rest, which is a really kind of a great thing because I don't have to deal with all the other stuff. I just do that. And we make pretty good money from that. So that's another piece that I teach all of my students is you can be making money in so many different ways in this industry. It's not just your fee. So I teach a lot of that. But oh, darn, what was I going with that? I get so excited, I forget where I'm going to say.
No
But
worries.
so this, yeah. So it's, so I have so many concessions. That's what I was going to say. So when I started out, I had like a few concessions, and these are credits and things that they get. They get like, there's just different concessions. Now my concessions are ridiculous. Like there's so many because I have to know. I'm now realizing that hotels are not providing. They may not be providing the stages, and your attritions are different, and they're not giving away VIP parking places. Like it's so much harder. There's so much more negotiating that has to go on and so many things you have to know. It's very tricky. I don't know how planners actually do site selection and thing without knowing contracts. I really don't understand. I come from a legal background, so I had that in my back pocket when I started, which I never thought that was going to be a good thing, but it's a very important piece to have. So I probably should teach more of that, but it's a really, really important piece to have. So it's changed a lot. So the pricing is
It's
hard.
so true.
It's very hard. And I feel for the new people coming in, but if you get someone to help you, even you're going through it too. It's always good to have someone who's already been down that road and knows what to look for.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. So, okay. So let me just see. We already talked about this. So let's talk about contracts and stuff. So can you discuss the importance of contracts and legal considerations in event planning and how you navigate these aspects to protect both your clients and your business?
Yes, 100%. I think, hearing you coming from a legal background, coming from a banking background out of college, I think I am definitely also someone who is always thinking about, the regulatory environment, the different, liabilities and externalities that we have at hand. So, contracts are so crucial in outlining the scope of work, the expectations, the responsibilities, those boundaries, all these things we've been talking about today. And it's protecting both you and your clients. So, I work with an amazing legal team. It's actually called Level Up Legal. They're a woman-owned legal team based in New York City. They're amazing, and they ensure that, all of our contracts are comprehensive, they're clear. If we have any clauses we're putting in or editing, they approve all of those before we do that. So I think, it's really important, again, doing things right the first time. Don't, get a contract template online or have AI draft you a contract.
No.
Spend that $250 to have a lawyer, review a contract for you. And you can make that a template and use it again and again and again. But again, it's so important, especially when we get into the legal and insurance component of the business, that you are covered, because there is a ton of risk and liability that you take on as an event planner.
Absolutely. When I started, my contract was like 5 pages. It's now 14 pages.
Yeah, I was going to say mine was so thin, and now it's like every month we're adding something new in there.
Every time we're like, oh, we got to add that to our contract because something comes up.
And all events are a learning experience. I mean, even hearing you say that, after your years, decades in the industry, you're still learning. Every event will teach you something new.
Exactly. And speaking of learning, it's so important. Like I listen to like you said, there's so many things that we can learn from. I listen to podcasts all the time because I want to learn. I want to learn about marketing because so that I can bring it to my students and teach that as well. But you have to stay up on there's so many things changing in this industry. It's insane.
It's so
You
true.
know, threads and this and that, right? So there's all different, and each one of them, you have to learn how to work each one of them: Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, all of that. So they're all a little bit different in how you work them. But I constantly am being making sure that I love to learn, right? I'm still learning. If I don't know something, I'm going to say, I got to find somebody who knows how to do this because I don't want to be the one that knows everything, right?
Yeah.
I stick to my expertise. And that's what you should do as well. Don't try to do everything and know everything. Just try to have those collaborations with people that you know. And I do collaborate with event planners as well. We've been talking a lot about vendors, but planners, getting to know planners like you and I, getting to know each other. There may be a time when I need some help and I'll bring you in, or, vice versa. That help
And
happens.
I agree. And even for me, there are planners where, we'll have clients reach out to us and maybe we have 3 different events on that date and there's just no way, we could possibly take it on. I love being able to refer, some of the planners that have become friends and be able to support them in their businesses.
Right. I just from talking to you in this 45 minutes, I know that I could put you on something that I wouldn't have to worry. So that's
Thank you.
that's the stuff that you need, right? I can just tell just from talking to somebody, right? But that's what you need is I need, because like you said, I may get an event where I have two on the same day and I can't be at both of them, but I have to have someone representing my company. And that's a big
Exactly.
piece to hand over. So okay, well, I could talk to you all day. You're so cute and adorable, and you're so smart, and I love it. But
Thank
we're
you,
getting
Annette.
again. So let's talk. I do this little lightning round thing, and so I want to ask you a few things, if you don't mind. Is that okay?
Of course.
Okay, good. So, who is someone who is inspiring you at the moment, and why?
So I would say, my kind of 24/7 inspiration is definitely my grandmother who passed during 2020. She was a lifelong hostess. And I think so many of the kind of classic principles of entertaining have become lost, especially with the pandemic. I just feel like a lot of the times these days, manners and social etiquette go out of the window. So I'm really inspired by her. And I think a lot of the old school kind of event planners, interior designers, other kind of design leaders like Ina Garden, Martha Stewart, Charlotte Moss, that really emphasize, the importance of etiquette, the importance of entertaining. Those are things that I think I really value.
Yeah, that's so sweet. I also lost my grandma. She was 95 in 2020, so I can relate to that. She had a long life, so she was great. Okay, so what's the best advice you've ever received?
Ooh, best advice I'd ever received. Again, I think it's twofold. Again, do things right the first time, or eat the frog is how it was said to me back in college.
Yeah,
I think that's really important. And I think the other thing is you never know who someone is, who someone will become, whether it's a vendor, another planner, a potential client. So treating everyone, no matter their level, no matter their clientele, no matter how many followers they have, with, respect, dignity, kindness, goes such a long way because you never know what referral that could lead into, what project that could lead into way down the road.
so true. I always say that. I don't care if, I'll be the first one to sweep up the floor or wipe up something. I'm not,
And
not,
that's another thing is no task should ever be too big or small for you as a business owner. Like if you're not there on your hands and knees, you need to be showing that you are as committed to your business as your employees, as the people cleaning, as people breaking down.
absolutely 100%. Okay, so we're almost coming to the end of the year here. It's insane how fast this year is going. But tell me, what is one thing that you're most looking forward to next year?
Ooh, for 2025?
Yeah.
I would say I'm really excited to be getting into Florida, actually. I'm doing my first wedding in Miami. And my parents have retired to Jupiter in Florida. So I'm really hoping to eventually expand my business down there. And I think for me, getting this Miami wedding client is kind of a great first foray into the Florida industry. And I feel so lucky already that I've been able to meet with some amazing vendors down there. We're actually doing a site visit later this month. So I think for me, it's really thinking about expansion and looking forward to that in 2025.
There's a great site, a Facebook group called Find Them, and it's FYND them, I think it is. Every vendor you could put, it's all in Florida. And I have done many events in Florida, and I've always got on there and said, I'm looking for someone who does cakes, blah, blah, blah. I have gotten responses immediately. So I don't know if you're aware of that, but you should check it out. And I actually have a bunch of contacts down there as well, because I'm in Boca Raton in the winter. So, and I'm doing a few weddings down there next year. So definitely, obviously, I'm here if you need any help. But go on to that Facebook group, and I'm telling you, they just know
it's so true. And yeah, as you said, like Facebook groups like that, such a resource. Talking to my other vendors and planners in the industry. I have some friends that specialize in Miami, and they're able to send me over, here's our master list of florists.
Reaching out to you then for contacts. Unfortunately, the weddings I'm doing down there, they have preferred vendors, and I can only use those vendors, which is kind of a bummer because I want to use my vendors as well. So, but that's okay. I'll meet new people, and I'm sure they're going to be fine. Okay, so what's one piece of advice you'd give to wedding event planners just starting out? We sort of touched that, but what's one piece you'd give?
Yeah, I mean, this is kind of in a different direction, but I would really say, thinking about work-life balance, starting a business, you really also want to prioritize yourself and self-care at points. Starting a business is certainly not for the faint of heart, and it's really important to make time for exercise, social time, relaxing, even just chilling and watching Netflix, setting those boundaries, learning when to delegate, finding that balance really ensures you can continue to deliver high quality events, can continue to build your business. So it's really important to take time for your mental and physical health.
I couldn't agree more. I'm heading to Italy next week for 2 weeks, and I'm completely shutting down. So my team.
Yeah, and I was in South Carolina for Labor Day. I took Labor Day off. We worked Memorial Day, we worked 4th of July. So it's really about maintaining that work-life balance to the best of your ability. Look, it's always crazy in events. We're in New York Fashion Week right now, but when you can, give yourself those moments.
I love it. Cameron, thank you so much. You are absolutely adorable. I love talking to you. I could talk about this stuff for days. So, and I know you get it. So thank you so much for joining. Where can everyone find you on social media?
So as far as social media, you can find me at Forbes Functions, ForbesFunctions. And we are on Instagram, Pinterest, TikTok, LinkedIn, all over. So check us out. Our website is also www.forbesfunctions.com.
That's awesome. Okay. Thank you so much, Cameron. Thank you everyone for joining us, and we'll be back again next week.
Thank you so much, Annette. Have a great day.
You too, honey.